Hello and welcome to the in-depth series of Drishti IAS. Today we are going to discuss Peru protests, what has happened in Peru, what is the current scenario as well as what is the relation that India has shared with Peru. Everything will be discussed from the perspective of GS mains paper second. So let us move ahead and talk about the various topics that we are going to discuss. These are the many topics that we are going to discuss step by step. And first of all, let us see what has happened in Peru. See, recently the former president Pedro Castillo was ousted last week. After that, protests started to occur. The protesters are stalling the airport in Peru's second largest city, Arequipa, and airlines have cancelled flights there and to Cusco, Peru's tourism capital. Southern Peru from here only the protests started. They have spread to the north and east of the country. Vandalism and looting are the components of this protest, as well as the southern city of 𝐈𝐀𝐒. It has become a hub for protests. So basically we can just see, nothing is important for you to remember enough, but just see how the protests have started and where they are right now, where they are restricted right now. On Wednesday, the government decided a 30-day state of emergency declaration. It suspended the right of assembly and free movement as well. Moving ahead now, let's talk about the current scenario. See, Pedro Castillo was forced out after he attempted to temporarily suspend Congress because Congress was going to impeach him on the basis of moral incapacity. He would rule by decree under emergency powers and call for new legislative elections. Okay, so this was his basis to continue ruling, that he would rule by decree and that would be under emergency powers, and he would call for a new legislative election soon. And Castillo, because of that, was removed from office. Then he attempted to seek asylum in the Mexican embassy. Interestingly, his own security details, which were sent out, the car he was in, it was diverted and he was detained in a police station and later charged with rebellion. So very interestingly, it's like a movie. Then Castillo's vice president, Dina Boluarte, was sworn in as his replacement. She is the first ever woman president of Peru. And he was detained at Barbadillo prison in a police base on the outskirts of Lima, the capital of Peru, where 84-year-old Alberto Fujimori, who was also a coup monger, he was imprisoned. Moving ahead now, let's talk about Peru. Peru is a country in South America, western coast of South America. It's the third largest country and 19th largest in the world. As you can see the map, Peru is surrounded by Ecuador, Colombia, Brazil, Bolivia and Chile. And it has the capital, a coastal capital, Lima, and it is the largest and the most populous city of Peru. Remember that. Lima is also the fourth largest city in South America. This also is important. It could be asked in preliminary examination. And Peru is just to the south of Equator. It is geographically positioned in both western and southern hemisphere of the earth. So this could be a prelims fact. Now, who is Pedro Castillo? Pedro Castillo is the former president of Peru. He is 53 years of age. He became a teacher. He was born to illiterate farmer parents. And as a teacher, he was very active in union work for, organizing activities for better pay and working condition. His socialist principles made him win the elections. His 2021 presidential campaigns reflected these ideas. The slogan was "No more poor people in a rich country." Although his tenure failed to live up to the expectations and he started becoming a coup monger, a dictator, and that's why he was ousted, and he was also surrounded by many political scandals ranging from corruption charges and other issues. Now, if we talk about what has sparked this protest, after coming to power, Pedro Castillo appointed 5 different cabinets in which there was a cycling out of 80 odd ministers in the short tenure. Many of his appointees were unpopular. They were having many charges against them, such as corruption, even domestic violence. Okay, and because of this particular cabinet, he started becoming unpopular, and he started losing the support of the population as a whole on the back of larger socio-economic troubles. So socio-economic troubles were already there. He was charged with corruption. His cabinet was also not a very healthy picture. That is why people started losing faith in him. When COVID-19 hit Peru really hard, it was one of the countries which had the highest death rate in the world, and this was the cause of large economic distress as well. So death plus distress. So what happened? It started fueling poverty and shrinking the middle class, both. His inability to guide Peru out of the situation proved to be his undoing. This is the problem, that he could not lead out the country out of the abyss. He, in fact, did not do anything according to the protesters. So recently he said that he would rule under the emergency by a decree and a fresh election would be there, but that could not happen. So Pedro Castillo decided to dissolve the Congress and announce a curfew on December 7, and he would almost immediately fail with his political alliance because they started, opposing this move. Even his very staunch supporters did not approve of this particular policy. The armed forces, they quickly put out a statement condemning the actions of Pedro Castillo, and that day the Peruvian legislature finally managed to impeach him and remove him. Okay, moving ahead now, what do the protesters want? See, protestors want fresh elections. Although Dina Boluarte is now the nation's first woman president, they're not very happy. They're calling for fresh elections. Fresh elections are going to be held in 2026. But Dina Boluarte has said that she will be shifting the general elections 2 years prior to 2026, that is in 2024. Moving ahead, India also has good relations with Peru. That is why happenings in Peru matter to us. India has diplomatic relations with Peru since March 1963, but the first ancient relation can be traced back to 1857 when the arrival from Peru of the Amazonas frigate happened at the coast of Kolkata. Okay, even before the beginning of formal relations, Peru opened its first consular office in Kolkata in 1897. Peru is a friend of India because Peru supports India's bid to become a permanent member of the expanded UNSC. And Peru is also founding member of the International Solar Alliance, which was launched by India. Also, India has expressed its desire to engage more closely with the Pacific Alliance, of which Peru is a huge part. Economic relations are also very good. See, trade between India and Peru is growing, with trade crossing $1 billion in 2011-2012, but $3 billion mark in 2017-18. For 2018-19, the total trade was $3.126 billion, which is ever increasing. Other than that, India has emerged the third largest export destination for Peru, then 13th largest source of import and 5th largest trading partner of Peru. Also, India's main exports to Peru include automobiles, motorcycle, three-wheelers, stars of iron and steel, polyester and cotton yarn, pharmaceutical, and etc. You can read this. Also, if we talk about imports from Peru, gold, copper, synthetic filaments, phosphate of calcium, fresh grapes, fish flour, all these we import from Peru. Peru is also called as the mining country because of its provisions of gold, copper, zinc from Peru to India, and it is increasing in the trade in the recent years. Moving ahead, there are also cultural relations. The first Indian Nobel laureate, Rabindranath Tagore, was quite inspired with the indigenous art of Peru. Other than that, the poetry of César Vallejo in Peru inspired a movement of Indian anti-imperialist writers and poets in 1940s. He is César Vallejo. Okay. Also, 2-year-long celebration of 150th birth anniversary of the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, was commenced in Peru. On 2nd October 2018, there was also a function at Marsical Castilla Park in Lynch. So, these are the many important aspects of Indian-Peruvian relations. Last time I asked you a question about fusion and fission, and many of you have answered this question. Amisha, also My Own World has answered it correctly. Tanu has answered it correctly. Guddu has answered it correctly. Sumit has answered it correctly. Srinivas and Navenism. Okay, I understand your answer is correct. Then Aditya has answered it correctly. Vinayak, Pramit, Koyal, Sudhanshu, Rupal, Rohit, Unstoppable, Anil, Daksha, Soumya, Sagarika, Shahid. Thank you so much for answering that last question. I will attach one more question in the comment segment. You can answer there and then I will read it in the next segment. Okay, thank you so much for watching and stay updated.